Hey, welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code ALOUETSFlightdeck10 at checkout, you'll save 10% off the entire order. So go over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code SAVE10%, and support local. I'm Tim Capper. You can follow me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can follow me on X, and I really hope you do because I seem to be losing a lot of followers, just like everybody else. Follow me over at Cliffy D. Although, kind of like Greg on Sports over at Piffles Pod, I don't need or want your pity follows, but if you want to follow, go ahead.
How about getting pity follows on Blue Sky, which you can find us too there, by the way, almost at the exact same thing, Repacked and at Cliffy D.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we'll be happy to have you guys over there too. We know we're coming up to the end of our broadcast season, Cliff.
Ugh, don't remind me. I mean, it's bittersweet when you think about it. Like this time of year, it's like, okay, the season's over, and Grey Cup's been handed out, and it's just a reminder. Like when December hits, it's like, dang, it's it's the end of the year. It's time to wrap it up for the season. So, I mean, it's good in a way, but at the same time, it's kind of bittersweet because we enjoy doing this show, and but at the same time, we don't want to keep going on for weeks on end and just stretch to find things to talk about. As they say, always leave them wanting more. So that's kind of our goal here at the Alouettes Flightdeck is always leave them wanting more.
Exactly. And as we have done, and it's become a very fun tradition here at the show, we are having our annual State of the Team interview with Alouettes President and CEO Mark Weightman. Stay tuned for that. It is a glorious interview. Most of the show this week is going to be with Mark, but it's well worth it because he's able to give us some insight on some certain things. And if you've been following the Owls all season, if you had some questions, hopefully he'll be able to answer them for you. And as we normally do, and we've kind of switched it up this year, but do not forget, this will not be the last show. This is kind of like part one of two of our season finale. Next week will be our year in review episode, which will finish up our 9th broadcast season.
Absolutely. And yeah, definitely having the opportunity to sit and chat with Mark Weightman and kind of go over some of the stuff that happened in 2024 and maybe try to shed some light on certain things as well. And also to kind of take a look at the future a little bit as much as we can, because I mean, listen, this was definitely a memorable season for the Montreal Alouettes. Perhaps not quite as memorable as last season, but still, I mean, a lot happened this year, and we are so excited for the opportunity to sit with Mark and basically go over the year that was and kind of look ahead a little bit into 2025 and hopefully beyond as well.
Exactly. But before we get to the episode, we got to keep you waiting for a little bit more. Want to just gotta have it. Just gotta wait. Gotta be patient. Because we were talking about the upcoming free agents that the Alouettes were scheduled to have. The Alouettes, since our last show, have re-signed some of our guys, and we want to at least mention it because we may not be able to mention it in full next week for next week's show, but we at least want to give these guys props because we talk about the offseason. Remember, we are in it, but there still have been some very interesting signings that the Alouettes have completed for these guys who will be in the nest for 2025.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, the biggest signing, of course, as we know about, is the extension of the contract of Davis Alexander, which truthfully was one of the bigger dominoes that was going to have to fall during the offseason, not just for the Montreal Alouettes, but in the Canadian Football League as well. And you're starting to see that movement now. You're starting to see teams start to shore up things as much as they can. Right now, the focus seems to be more on the coaches and general managers for other teams, but Danny Machocha, he likes to work in silence, kind of undercover a little bit, not a whole lot of fanfare, but he's putting pen to paper to a lot of guys. And I mean, solid moves that had to be made in order to ensure that this team's going to be successful in 2025 and beyond. So yeah, definitely. There's a few things to go over, so we'll go over that. But do we want to do that now, Tim, or do we want to just dive right into your view, give people what they want, or what? How do you want to go about this?
You know what? Let's because it is a topic, and it is something that may have leaned into a little bit of what Mark had mentioned to us. Let's go ahead and mention these guys, give them their due, and then right into the conversation with Mark.
Let's do this then. All right. As we discussed right up the top, I mean, Davis Alexander was the, I don't want to say prize acquisition because he was already here, but it was the move that had to be made. Extending him, like essentially making that choice. We got to eliminate this quarterback controversy once and for all. And that's exactly what happened. It's been eliminated. Davis Alexander is QB1 now for the Montreal Alouettes, signed an extension. That was fantastic. And we had said in our Eastern final wrap up that, okay, there are certain names that we had mentioned that had to be signed. And whether they get signed now or just before free agency, or maybe they actually do want to test free agency, see what happens, but already a couple of very notable names have been re-signed for 2025, and in some cases beyond 2025. Let's see, right away, one of the bigger names off the top on defense, and I'm very happy to see, is Najee Murray. Is going to be back with the Montreal Alouettes in 2025. Najee's been a stalwart of this Alouettes defense since 2018. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to play in the Grey Cup last year. He was unfortunately felled by injury, and he had said, like, as great as it is to win a championship, I am looking forward to being back on the field and hopefully leading to another championship. And when he was on the field this year, he definitely played some pretty outstanding football, including a very timely pick in the Eastern Final, which unfortunately it still counts as an interception, but ultimately didn't really go anywhere, which is unfortunate. But in any event, we're very happy to see Najee back in Alouettes blue and red for 2025. So that was a stellar move that I'm very happy was made. Another signing was Sean Thomas Erlington. Interesting enough, the running backs that were in the lineup for 2023 all are pending free agents in 2024. So the Alouettes have decided let's get working on that as well. So signing STE to a contract was definitely a great move. Been on special teams for the most part this year, but towards the latter part of the season, he got some reps at running back and did extremely well. So well, in fact, that the Alouettes felt comfortable in trading Jeshuan Antwi to the BC Lions, which ultimately opened up the door for STE to run alongside with Walter Fletcher. And again, STE had some really outstanding runs, especially in the last two games that the Alouettes played. Just some absolutely incredible rushes. So very happy to see STE back in the lineup again. A move that I am extremely thrilled about, and one that I said absolutely positively had to get done, was announced this week as well. Wesley Sutton is going to be sticking around for not 1, but 2 years with the Montreal Alouettes. Again, we've had Wesley on the show. Nothing but good things to say about him, obviously. I mean, just a hell of a player. And we got to see a lot of his leadership this year. I mean, not just on the field, but off the field as well. I mean, I'll go back to that loss against the BC Lions Thanksgiving week, essentially. And it was actually him that, the Alouettes social media team had focused on as far as the post-game speech. I mean, Jason Moss went in, said a couple of quick words, but basically just left it to the players. And it was Wesley who stood up and said, guys, we still got this. We're still a team. We're still united. We still got this. Like, he put the team on his back, so to speak, in that speech, and just really truly became, as far as I'm concerned, like one of the leaders of this team, like one of those voices in the locker room that you better sit up and pay attention to. If Wesley's talking, you better take note because he's spitting the truth. And that's the kind of leadership that this defense needs, that this entire team needs. And for Wesley to step up and be that guy this year, you love to see it. And I'm just beyond thrilled that he's going to be sticking around and being that leader for at least the next 2 seasons. So absolutely 100% on board with that. Aside from that, I don't think we did mention Jose Maltos also had signed a 2-year contract as well. So we're definitely happy about that. I mean, he stepping in for David Cote and performing very admirably as well. So we're definitely happy that Jose is going to be with the team as well. What this means for David Cote, again, we'll see what happens, but it kind of feels to me like maybe the Alouettes have made their choice, kind of like with the whole Davis Alexander situation. I mean, not that a kicking controversy is really a thing, but I think they realize what Jose has brought to this team and how invaluable he has become. And he was signed, sealed, and delivered. So we'll see what happens with Cote as free agency comes closer. But as it stands right now, it looks like it's going to be Jose Maltos as kicker. And in case you're wondering about Joseph Zima, who's also a pending free agent, wonder no more, because as per the CFL transactions page, Joseph Zima has also signed on. We have no word yet on how long of a term that he signed for, but at least for 2025, we know that our punter, Joseph Zima, it will be back in the lineup as well. So I think that's, as far as like the notable names that people know, I think that will be it. I mean, yes, there's some other signings as well, but again, these are players that you may not hear about until training camp gets underway. But again, Danny Mac is doing what he does best, just kind of building this roster kind of quietly, just making those sneaky good signings and doing essentially what he can to basically keep this, Grey Cup championship caliber roster in place as much as possible.
Exactly. And obviously, as if anybody who's seen the lists, there are a lot of not only for the Alouettes, but there are for the other teams too. All this things for all we know, next week when we have our next show, our season finale, it's very possible we're going to have some more guys that we're going to be able to talk about and who have re-signed with the Alouettes for 2025 and potentially beyond that too. So stay tuned, because they said it's always interesting. And by the way, I still am going to stress, and I know, Cliff, you yourself will actually agree with me and I can speak for you immediately, is that as I have really been pushing throughout the year, continuously look at the CFL transactions page. It is your best option right now to see who has signed for your team. It
Or
may
more
not be
importantly,
announced
who hasn't signed.
officially. Exactly. And it may not have been announced officially by the team, but you do know that sooner or later they will be announced as signing with your team. So that's one thing I can't stress more, is the CFL transactions page. So
Oh, definitely. It's an invaluable tool, especially too if you're curious about other impending free agents or maybe even practice roster players. Let's not forget too, at the end of the season, players from the practice roster are released, and some get signed back almost immediately, and some don't. So I mean, sometimes it doesn't hurt to see maybe if perhaps there was this unsung hero, for example, that for whatever reason, Team X decided not to sign just yet. Maybe they will, and they just haven't gotten around to it. But maybe there's somebody, maybe there's some sort of diamond in the rough, if you will, that maybe Danny Machocho's, might be thinking about, like, hey, I think he'd be a good add to the team, and he'd be allowed to sign them because they are free agents. So you don't have to wait till February for when free agency gets underway. Like, you could sign them right now if you want to. Conversely, there's also too a lot of the Alouettes practice roster guys that were on the roster last year are still unsigned. They too could be signed by any other team at this point. If it's open season as far as I'm concerned. So again, all this to say, to reiterate your point, Tim, yes, definitely, folks, pay attention to the transactions page. You may not understand some of the terminology or anything like that, but at least you can see, so-and-so is going to be back. And then when the team makes it officially official, you can always say that, hey, I knew this was going to happen.
Future active.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the hell that means.
If you know, you know. And you know what's funny? I don't think anyone knows what that means. I think they just put that there to troll us. And guess what? It worked.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Danny gave us that look. If anybody remembers at camp this year when we asked him that question. Either way, stay tuned. Keep an eye on it. As we have stated, this is one of our favorite shows of the year. We're able to sit down with the Alouettes president and talk about the year that was. So, without further ado, let's go into the state of the team interview with Alouettes president and CEO Mark Weightman. like we want to do every year, we want to bring in the president of the Alouettes to talk about the team, talk about the year that was, and just to get an overall state of the franchise itself. We're always happy to have this gentleman join us here on the flight deck. Alouettes President and CEO Mark Weightman. Mark, thanks again for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite, guys. Always fun to chat with you. You know that.
I know
this has become a tradition like no other. I feel. I mean, again, as Tim talked about, it's always, I feel it's important for us on this podcast to share what's important with not just with the team, but with everybody in the organization as well. And I feel like you as president and CEO do a great job of representing the organization as a whole. So, we just want to let you know that, the information that you give us and, the willingness to share everything does not go unnoticed by Alouettes Nation. So once again, we thank you for having us here and being a part of this. And we are definitely looking forward to keeping this tradition going as long as we can.
Well, I'm glad for that. And yeah, thanks guys. It's always been fun. And, anybody were ever to challenge me on being honest about what I'm saying right now, all you have to do is look back at the fact that I did this when I was with the club the first time around. We did this when I was not even with the club anymore, and now we're doing it now that I'm back with the club. So obviously, if I keep coming back, it's because it's a lot of fun, guys. So it's always fun to chat with you. You guys do a great job of talking to our fans and keeping our fans engaged and giving us the feedback too. As you guys know, and people that listen to this every week don't realize this, but you guys are also a great source of feedback for us. After the game, we'll always chat a little bit, and you'll come up. And sometimes, if you notice something in the stadium or this or that, whether it's positive or constructive feedback, you guys are a great source for that. So I appreciate that.
That's what we do.
Appreciate it. That's what I say. The three marks. I forgot. Yeah. So many years ago when you were on Mark, and then obviously we're talking about your history within the U2 game. So and obviously now. So a couple of weeks ago, you guys had your season-ending press conference, and you brought up a few interesting tidbits, obviously, about the team in 2024, and a lot of the stuff I know that you guys are very, you and the organization are really proud about. Talk about some of those things, whether it be from ticket sales to attendance itself. It's there because it was a very to me, and I'm sure it is the Alouettes Nation. It was a very, very positive season, even though the team did not go to Grey Cup.
I agree. I think we were a few points away from being where we wanted to be at the end of the year. But when you look at the season as a whole, or you look at the year as a whole, we accomplished a lot. And that we're a lot of things that we're proud of. I'll start with the spring, where we just, during the whole winter and spring, we did I think a really good job of reconnecting with the fans everywhere in the province. We had this big silver cup to drag with us everywhere, and we went, up to Chicoutimi and to Trois-Rivières and to Sherbrooke and all over the province, celebrating with our fans and reconnecting with our fans. Gave us a great opportunity to get people to come out and see us. Start up our hockey program again, all these different things. So that's one that we're very proud of. Two is, people come to see us at the games for two reasons. They want to come, well, two main reasons. There's others, but the main reason is they want to come see the game. They want to come see us win. They want to come see us perform. But they also come to be entertained. And so, as you guys know, because we talk about this a lot, since day one, going back 20 months now, we've been really, really focused on revitalizing, re-energizing the game experience at the stadium. Did a lot of things in 2023, but even did more this year in 2024. And I think that's one of the things that we're particularly proud of, because we see that energy, we feel that energy, that people are talking to us about it. Fans are coming up to me. Tim, I think you were there actually one of the games after the game, where a fan came up to me saying, "Hey, we notice all this stuff you guys are doing. It's great." And so having it noticed is really important, whether it be so focusing a lot on the pregame shows. We have that stage now, that Lot of Quebec stage in the end zone every game. They do pregame shows. We do halftime shows often from there. Lots of different types of music and bands and whatnot that people seem to really enjoy. And just having that pregame event to go to. Just adds to your day. Obviously, there's the traditionalists that go to the tailgate on weekend games. Some do it during the week as well, but especially the weekend games is when we kind of blow it up a little bit and make it a bigger tailgate. Those last few games of the year were phenomenal. Even on the 14th on Thanksgiving when the weather didn't cooperate, but there was still well over 1,000 fans out there in the pouring rain, having a good time. But our last two games, the 25th and the playoff, it was crazy how many people we had out there for the playoff game. We were, for the first time ever, I started thinking we're going to have to expand up into the park a little further north on Park Avenue because we're starting to run out of space. And something that I never thought we'd have that kind of a challenge, but happy to see that we do now. So that's really exciting to see that you have the traditional pregame tailgate. You have now the pregame concert series and DJ and whatnot going on in the pregame. Halftime shows, whether it be special ceremonies honoring guys like SJ or our 74 team, which gives us an opportunity to reconnect with the past, or the bands. I think people enjoy that. But over and above those staple items, I think it's just the overall production of the games. I read an interesting article this morning in the Journal de Montréal that was talking about the opening ceremonies and the game experience at the Victoires game on the weekend at Place Belle, and how great a show it was. And they mentioned right in there that the team that does the production for them is the same team that do the production for us. Actually, it's a group. Two people in particular, and one who actually used to be an Alouette cheerleader. This is how she originally knows the Alouettes. I did game presentation for the Rocket back in the day when I was there, and then I actually dragged her out to Trois-Rivières, her and her better half, who are two partners in this business, to do games at the Lions in Trois-Rivières, and then brought them back to Verdun to do the basketball at the Alliance. And then when I had the opportunity to return here to football, and I wanted to reinvent the game presentation component and tighten up a lot of the production elements of the game so that it's always free flowing. It's the music, it's the announcements, everything's got to be, it's one of those things where if it's done really, really well, you just notice the highlights and you don't notice the rest. But if you screw it up, you notice it all the time. It's kind of like an old lineman, if they're doing their job, you usually don't see them in the broadcast. And that's something that we really improved a lot this year, and people recognize that. So I think I think that's something that is among the big achievements for this year. Now, what did that lead to? It helped us fill the building. The buzz is back. It's cool to go to an Alouettes game again. I think that's what I talked about a lot at our postseason press conferences. If I can put one statement out there that I feel very comfortable with is it's become cool to come to an Alouettes game again. And I say again because we know that it was the case for a long time. We had a 10-year stretch where we were sold out every game, and we started filling the stands again. We started seeing young fans in the stands again, younger fans coming more and more often, especially those Friday games and Thursday games. And our attendance was up 23%. We averaged 21,300 this year, which was up from 17,300 the year before, which is great. Again, capacity is 23. So that was a really good jump in attendance. You could feel it in the stadium, right? Our players even were, noticing how loud the building was. Like, well, it's getting close to being full now all the time. And then sure enough, once the fall rolled around, we were able to string a few of these together. Our home opener was our first sellout since the fall of 2016. And then we strung 3 in a row at the end of the regular season, plus the playoff game. So we were able to string a few in a row at the end, 4 in a row, which hadn't been done since, I think 2012 or 13, if I'm not mistaken. And that in itself, I think, speaks volumes as to what we were able to accomplish this year as far as the rebranding, about reconnecting with their young fans. So, our memberships were up 26%. Our single game tickets were up 65%, which is just phenomenal. Wow. Just phenomenal. All right. I mean, when you look at the attendance of the game, when you look at rebuilding the franchise's fan base, you have a product life cycle. If you're looking at tickets and season tickets, you usually don't go from never being to a game to I'm going to buy season tickets, right? You've never been to a game to I'll go once, and I might buy a 3-pack or a 5-pack. You may jump in right away saying that was so fantastic, I just moved here from out of town or whatever reason. You might go straight to a season ticket, but often it's something that's done progressively. And so what we needed to do is to replenish the part of the life cycle where we didn't have a lot of young fans, because we had about a 10-year span where we didn't give fans a lot to cheer about. We didn't give them a lot of reason to want to jump on board with us. And so now when you see the memberships is going up in 20 some odd %, which is really good, 26%, but 68% of single game tickets, that means that there's a lot of people that came out and tried it for the first time this year. And then we see that we can track it. A lot of people came back for a second time this year. And those are the people that we're going to look to turn into maybe partial memberships next year or even full memberships next year, because they got a taste and they want to come back. And so that's really, really encouraging. We also had 68% increase in group sales, which, by the way, is first in the league. So you guys know there's a lot of bigger stadiums out there in this league. We were first in the CFL this year in group sales, which means you have school boards coming in or amateur football groups coming into games, any other social club, and a lot of corporate groups. And a lot of corporate groups see that we have an offering now that we're growing, so that you can come to the game and have a cocktail hour down on the field before the warm-up. You're right out there, like at the 55-yard line on the turf. And then when the guys start coming out for the informal warm-up, you're right there with them, and you're right in the action. So we have that. We have hospitality areas in and around the stadium, in addition to the suites. And then the problem we had with the suites this year is we were sold out. By the time we hit July, we were sold out for the rest of the year. So we started adding more inventory. Those tents you see in the end zone, and just calling it a tent doesn't do it justice, because they're a really nice little setup. We call them lofts, which really are suites, but that are set up outdoors with these tents and a little terrace in front and the barbecue terrace nearby, and our fans love them because the atmosphere is fantastic. You're close to the field. You're much closer than a suite, actually. So we had to start adding inventory. So that's a lot of what I talked about this year too, is we needed to add more inventory, especially for our corporate fans or fans that want an all-inclusive experience. And so that helped us with groups as well. Overall, we were up 45% this year on ticket revenue, if you include all ticketing products. So we're very proud of that. I'm very proud of our sales team and our marketing team, especially the group side is very directly the sales team. So they worked their butts off, and we were able to really generate some great crowds. And what's interesting, obviously, Danny and Jay and the coaches and the players, like, they create the buzz around the team, and that always is your first ingredient. But what's interesting to see is, if you look at our record, we had a very good record in the beginning of the season. We had a less than spectacular record in the fall, just because division was locked up and all this and that. So when we had our sellouts is when there was nothing at stake, and they were the least important games. And so I mentioned that internally here because I say to the folks, this is why we say it takes everyone to win, and for us to win is to fill the stadium. And of course, we need the team to win. We need our guys to perform on the field. But it's also everything else. And so it was a nice testament to that 45% increase that we had this year. And it already looks good early into next year's renewal. We're tracking ahead of last year again, which is great. And we're looking forward to adding to those numbers in 2025.
Also seeing that, because the team has done so well, Mark, for those who may not be able to get over to Percival Molson, there's been quite a nice bump when it comes to the French television, obviously over in RDS. I know that TSN, it is what it is on the English side, but specifically on the French side, on RDS, they've seen quite a bump when it comes to television viewership.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at overall our national number, we were first in the league as well. That's the second thing, we were first in the league, and with an average of 660,000 people watching our games on average. And we had, I think, 2 of the top 3 watched sporting events of the season. So that was spectacular. But just RDS, our home games averaged 271,000 just in RDS. Those are numbers that we hadn't seen since 2014, I believe. And that was spectacular. Our overall numbers were up 26%, but like I said, the 271, that's up 37% from the year prior. And the year prior, they were way up from the year before that. So we've really got a nice momentum going. Our radio numbers as well were very spectacular. And the East Final, I mean, we had 1.7 million people watch the East Final on November 9th on TSN RDS combined. And so those are great numbers. It shows, I think, that our brand is healthy. There's a definite interest out there for Alouettes football, and it's great for our partners because they buy visibility with us, right? So obviously this is great for them as well, but great for us as far as just growing our brand.
Mm-hmm.
So does this make it easier when you have to go to the owner, Pierre Karl Pelado, and say to him, hey, listen, I've got a great idea. I've got something that I think would really attract fans. Do all these numbers make it that much easier for him to say, yeah, go ahead, let's do it?
Well, first of all, anytime we talk about our business, I always try to not use the word easy because it's easy. But I understand what you mean by your question. And, yes and no. Yes, because what we've done and what we said it would accomplish has come true. So anything going forward, we just need to be able to show that, like any other business, I need to be able to be comfortable that what we're going to invest in and what I'm going to propose to Mr. Pelado makes business sense. And so if we have a reasonable return on our investment for adding a section or investing in new equipment or whatever it may be, now that we're getting that much more of a track record, positive track record, I would say that, yeah, it does facilitate the process because we've shown that it works.
Well, he's definitely enjoying being a fan of the Alouettes, as you can see. I mean, it's almost like a kid with a new toy. That's how it was. That's how it felt last year, and it looks like it's continued on to this season as well. I mean, do you think that momentum really just keeps going when it comes to his ownership as a whole?
I do. I think he's very proud of the team. I think he's proud of what he's been able to accomplish, along with our team that are boots on the ground with him. I love watching him watch the games because he's very passionate about it, and he's becoming more and more knowledgeable about our players and about their strengths and their weaknesses, and almost every game, home and away, he's attended, and he usually travels with his family, and sometimes his extended family, which is great because it's a family thing where they all celebrate together and get to know football. So that's really cool to see his brothers there. His family obviously is his wife and young kids who come to almost every game. It's great for us to see him enjoying it and showing so much pride in it and involving his family in it, because it's a testament to how invested he is. And the people that sends the best message to is our players. I mean, there's been a couple of games where he's flown in and he gets there like right before kickoff, but he's running into the stadium at one point because he wants to get there before the players come on for the official warm-up, or as they come off after the warm-up, I should say, or before the official introductions, so that he's there, high five, good luck. And that sends a message to the players, like, wow, this guy cares. And that's what the players want, right? They want to know that they're cared for, that we believe in what we're doing. And so I really believe that even if he doesn't say a word to them, but they just see that he's there and he's clapping and he's high-fiving them, it sends a really important message that an owner, I think, is well-served in sending to his entire team.
Well, we definitely speak to that simply because last week we had Austin Mack on the show, and he too talked about his relationship with Pierre Karl Pelado, and bouncing ideas off of him, and Mr. Pelado also trying to get to know Austin and his family as well. I mean, I feel like it's been a great relationship. At least if you're going strictly based on Austin Mack's perspective, but I mean, I have to feel like he's doing that with other players as well.
No, absolutely, and I think he shows an interest in these players, and he sees they're special people, and especially those that are investing in Montreal. And like Austin's moved here full time now with his family, and he's going to live here. That's something that's not to be taken lightly, because it's an important move, and obviously all the local players that are so involved in the community, and they get to see Pierre Karl more often because he may attend some of these events as well. And so yeah, it is important. And I'll give you the best example actually of the effort that was made is we were talking earlier off air about how that trip to BC is not an easy one. He flew to BC and back same day return trip just to watch the game. He flew there, got there just in time. He ran on the field, saw the guys, watched the game. Game ended, out of the stadium, got in his plane, came home. That's a heck of an investment, because it's a long day, and but he wanted to be there. So you gotta love that.
I also did notice too is that Mr. Pelodeau has become a good part of the team's identity, especially like for the game that we had in Ottawa, the fan bus game. It wasn't necessarily that having the fans there, et cetera, and I know Mr. Pelodeau was there. You should have seen the amount of people, Mark, that wanted to get his autograph, and including one of my family members wanted PKP's autograph. So he's become an integral part of Alouettes Nation for sure.
No, absolutely. And I think the fans have embraced the fact that he saved the team. And we wouldn't have had a season last year if it wasn't for Mr. Pelodeau, and what a season it was, right? And I think people see that he's doing it for the right reasons too, and wants to win. He's very competitive. So we're not doing this just to play. We're doing this to win. And I think that resonates with fans. And I mean, I know what you're talking about. In Ottawa, along the end zone, everybody's looking to get autographs and photos. And he's grabbing people's phones and taking selfies with them. And I still remember one fan. She's been a fan of the team for many, many years. And this lady came up to him and said, "Mr. Pelodeau," with her big accent, Anglo accent, and "Mr. Pelodeau." And I was wondering what she was going to say to him. And she comes up to him and gives him a hug and says, "Thank you for saving my team." and it was just a really special moment, And then she backed up and said, "Well, I realize it's your team, but it's my team."
We'll give you the honor of paying the bills from my team.
That's right.
Obviously, a ton of positives this season. I mean, there are a lot of things that many fans may not have known about, Mark, when it came to how the team was able to do what they did. And you're talking about, again, 4 sellouts during the regular season, 1 in the postseason. If I'm not mistaken, and for those that may not know, there were some slight modifications that you guys did in the stadium to allow the team to finally come to a mark of just over 23,000 as capacity at Percival Molson.
That's right.
What were the challenges this year to try to make sure that you could fit everybody as much as possible, hoping to get that many sellouts as you did this year, but to get as many people in the stadium as possible?
Yeah, well, we just needed to be a little bit creative. We wanted to add some sections, but we also needed to. So we had some. There's 3 camera platforms in the north stands that have been built to bring the cameras down lower into the stands, but there was a lot of seat kills because of them, and unfortunately, in the last 7 years or so, there was not an issue of not having enough seats. And so in anticipation that this year, as we saw things were moving along, like we needed to maximize the capacity of the stadium. And so we modified our 3 camera platforms on the north side, where we lowered them, we made them smaller, and we sort of fixed that problem where there was 3 major sections or pockets that we had to kill seats. So that helped us bring the capacity back up. And we added some sections too. We redid our barbecue terrace in the end zone, adding some lofts, as I was saying earlier, for the suites. We added the sideline sections where we had like our VIP sideline next to the Alouettes bench. Probably a pretty decent chance that we're going to expand that to the visiting side bench for next year, FYI. There you go. There's your scoop. I haven't told anybody that yet. We also added, you may have noticed, the red tent structure that was in the corner of the end zone. If you're up in the press box, down to the left of the visiting team bench. We put that in for October 25th and the playoff game for the first time. That's our sideline suite. And 18 people can fit in there. And I mean, you're on the field, but you're in the corner, and you have a spectacular view of the field. And the fans that were in there actually at the playoff game, they were filming the game as we threw a touchdown to, who caught the touchdown in the far corner in the playoff? And that I want to say it might have been Austin Mack. Anyways, and he caught the ball, turned and slowed down, and almost ran right into the suite where they were as they were filming it on their phone. And so it went viral at one point. It's on social media somewhere, but it was. We don't need to work to sell that suite anymore, because that video did it, because you're so close, you're in the action with a great view. So that was another example of how we added some sections and added some space, and allowed us to maximize the capacity of the stadium as it is today.
Now, just for those who don't know the term, Mark, what are seat kills?
Seat kills are a seat that physically is there, but that we kill it in our manifest, that we don't sell it because it has an obstructed view. So we had a bunch of seat kills like behind the cameraman and the camera platform where they were previously.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now, a bit of a double-edged sword here, but as impressive as it is to have that issue of, as you said, seat kills, and make sure we maximizing capacity, but at the same time, sort of mitigating the loss of those seats. If we can flip things around a little bit, one thing I did notice during the Eastern Final was everybody was packed in like sardines. I mean, again, the seats are what they are at Percival Molson Stadium. I know that until you actually get actual seats in there, that's not going to change. But where do you find that balance? I guess I need to know, because it's, you want to be there. You obviously want to support the team, but at the same time, when you're feeling like wedged in, and let's face it, like those seats were, the seating chart may have been based on how big people were like 50 years ago, whereas people are, I hate to say it, a lot bigger now, than a lot taller, and a lot more, there's a lot more people now, so to speak, than there was back in the day. How do you address those challenges?
Well, I mean, the standard seat size is the standard 18-inch, so that actually hasn't changed much, even in other stadiums. But what happens is when you have a seat, it's not as easy to kind of scooch down like an extra couple of inches. And then if everybody does that, then down at the end of the row, it might be a little tougher. You got to have the usher come in and help people scoot along. And it's worse for those last games of the year, Cliff, because people are showing up with winter jackets and parkas and whatnot. So it does feel a little tighter when you get to those late games in the fall. But I think people forget that's how it was for many, many years. And to be honest with you, it makes it a little cozier and snugger when you get into those cold games, right? So we get to all. But what I compare it to is, because we always compare it to what we see, and the neighbor's grass is always greener, right? It's go to Lambeau Field. It's exactly the same thing. It's the same benches.
I'm glad you.
Lambeau Field they don't have the PVC covering, which kind of gives you a little bit of an insulation from the aluminum bench. But Lambeau Field is the same benches, but they're aluminum and they're 18 inches. And that's a stadium where you get packed in nice and snug, and it's got to be the best game experience probably that I've been to for a football game, anyways. And so yeah, I think that you've got to look at the positive side of it too. It allows us to have as many people in that building as possible, and with great sight lines. And if we start putting in seats and stuff like that, we have to be careful, because then we get forced to use the new code, and then we all of a sudden we lose a lot of capacity and maybe have to change some rows. And which is, by the way, the only reason, well, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons why the Packers haven't changed either. Because that's a very old stadium, and if they were to redo it, they'd have to do it under a new code, and they'd lose a lot of capacity.
Yeah, and at least here in Montreal, you don't have to pay $300 for the privilege of sitting on a bench, whereas Green Bay, that's about the going rate. And again,
Yeah.
people line up. There's a waiting list to get on the waiting list for season tickets.
Oh, years. Was it 20, 30 years now? Their waiting list. Yeah.
Something like that. Like people bequeath it to their children, even like the hopes of maybe one day getting to be a Packers ticket holder. It's incredible.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those. It's what everybody aspires to be, right? Is to have that strong of a brand and a tradition, and where people are lining up to come see your games. That's how it was once upon a time, and that's how we aim to have it be once again.
Well, that would be a good problem to have for Montreal fans to, if they don't have their season tickets, to get on a waiting list and maybe hopefully one day get a chance to come and be a part of this as well. So,
well, no, and like that's one of the main reasons to have season tickets, right? Like one thing that, and I think you guys know that I think we've done really well over the years is as a season, if you have a season membership, you have a lot of advantages, right? You have a lot of privileges, whether it be coming to special private events or having discount on the food and bev at the stadium or the boutique or all these different things. You can trade tickets for certain games. You can send them to friends. The list is pretty long, but ultimately the most important most valued privileges are the guarantee that you have the same seat every game. And of course, your season discount. If you buy them as a season discount, you get a 25% discount or 30% if you buy them in the early bird. Now, when the stadium's half full, that privilege of knowing you have your seat every game has less value. It has value because you know where you're going to go. It has value if you enjoy exactly the sideline where you are. Don't get me wrong; it still has a lot of value. But when the games are sold out, and they weren't, as you guys saw, they weren't just sold out day of the game, but we had, was it 2 or 3 of our games that sold out several days in advance, and we announced it ahead of time. Tickets are all sold. The scarcity of the ticket becomes very valuable. So as a season ticket holder, you don't need to sweat having a seat to go to the game, and especially for your playoff game. So this year, more than any in the last 10, or 12, we now, having finished the last half of the season on a sellout string or streak, that's bringing a lot more value to those season memberships. And I think people are seeing that now, and we see it in the renewals, and we see it in people's reactions. And it also, for those that can't come to certain games, as you guys know, you can also resell your tickets. Well, when you're reselling your tickets, but there's a lot left, it has a little bit less value because people have a choice. Now, when you're sold out and I can't go this weekend and I don't have a friend to send them to, I'll put them back on the market. And people get, snatch them up in 4 minutes. That brings more value as well, right? So we're in a privileged position right now to be able to offer to our season members much better value for those privileges. And so that's just good for everyone.
How closely do you guys look to third-party ticket resellers?
What do you mean by how closely do we like?
Well, I mean, you as you said, it's something you're sold out, something becomes scarce, or somebody decides that for whatever reason they can't go, they put them on either the Alouettes resale or through another third party. Is that something you guys keep track of to
yes.
just get an idea of what, you know what I mean?
We do. We definitely do. I mean, there's always going to be third parties that buy tickets, and we have certain restrictions that can limit that. And whatever we put on the secondary market, of course, our secondary market, which is the safest one, right, is to go onto our goelsgo.com and get tickets that way. And there's zero chance of fraud. There's zero chance of any issues with it. But we'll track everything else just to kind of see where it's at and how we're doing, and which tickets are selling quickest. Is it the most expensive, the least expensive, somewhere in the middle? Those things are always important because every fan is different, every fan situation is different, and every fan wants a different type of seat, type of ticket. And so for us to kind of stay on the ball when it comes to being able to offer what people want, it's definitely something we track as well.
Speaking of season tickets, the Alouettes did a slight modification to some of the different pricing sections, the
Mhm.
pricing that is available for fans coming up in 2025. How
Yeah.
much how much did you guys look into the changes that you did? Because I'll give an example, and I understand the reasoning why, because I think you and I have talked about this already. As an example, now the seats that are underneath the upper deck on the south side, I think it is, they're now premium seats, which I completely understand why. But I mean, it's
Mhm.
if you're going to explain that, I'll be more than happy to hear it again. But how much went into setting the seat map for 2025 did you guys do?
Oh, we spent a lot of time looking at that. Sort of scaling and rescaling the stadium from year to year is something I think that's important for any franchise to do. So we noticed in some of the sections in the upper deck, you want things you want to sell the stadium out from the middle out, right? And we had a few sections that always kind of came out of sequence, and then you'd have a bit of a gap. And so that tells us that, okay, our scaling is not right. There's too big a gap between this category and this category. And so we tweaked the shape of the pricing categories on the upper deck of the south side that I think will better reflect sort of where the supply and demand is at this point. So that was a lot of thought went into that, because we look at the sell-through rate per section, we look at the rate at which the speed at which they sell, and the price at which they sell as well. So that is sort of the result of a long, complicated analysis that we do during the season. And on the underneath the lip of the upper deck, you're right. I think actually that's a mistake, to be honest with you, that we made when we moved to when we redid the upper deck, and that we for the first time had a covered section in the stadium, because well, it's really easy to explain. I mean, if it's raining, you're covered. They're the only place in the stadium other than in a suite that you're covered. So they should be premium seats. And so because over the years now, quite a few people had abandoned their season tickets. Those sections that used to be always sold out of season tickets are only about 50% occupied by season ticket holders now, or were. And so, but we started doing two things, actually. One, we started advertising it clearer that these tickets, are under shelter, which if you've never been to the stadium before and you're just looking out, where am I going to go? Where do I want to sit? And you see that, ooh, okay. So they started selling a lot faster. And so we felt that we didn't jump the price significantly, but what we did is we surclassed each section. So if you're in the bronze, but you're now covered, well, the covered seats are the price of the silver, which is the next section over. And the silver section, if you're covered, it's the price of the gold. And it's actually a pretty small premium, but we felt that it was logical to reflect that. But we did, however, for any of our longtime season ticket holders in those sections that didn't notice any difference in their bill, that's because there wasn't one. We did grandfather this rule into the people that had season tickets there prior to this change. It's maintained and through this year, and we didn't want to negatively impact those long-standing season ticket holders, but anybody new paid the new price.
Sure.
I mean, when you have a small stadium like this, and you got to maximize your revenue from what you have, as long as you're giving value for it, and people are willing to pay it because they recognize that value, then that means it's a fair deal. And that's what we noticed. Was we did some testing throughout the year, and that's why we didn't boost it too much, but we did boost it a bit, and I felt that it was fair for all concerned.
Why do you think it took the team so long to make the change, though, Mark? Because as you said, it was. I think I agree with you. I think it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Obviously, the expansion. The first year of expansion, I think, was 2010, if I remember correctly, 2010, 2011.
Correct.
Why do you think it took the team or the organization so long to
I think
look at that potential change?
Well, I think we recognized it, and I think what it came down to is, and those were all our season ticket holders in the south side that were there. Like most of them, if you had a season ticket on the south side, especially in those rows, you'd been with us since 98, 99, right? Since we first moved back to that stadium. And And I think we felt that if we were to make the change then, it would have only affected season ticket holders, and it would have been almost exclusively those long-standing season ticket holders. And so I think we felt that would have been a bit of a kick in the teeth to those that have been supporting us all that time. So we just chose to accept it. And I think the reason that now the timing is right is what I said before, is that half of those seats are no longer season ticket holders. So we were able to open it up to new clients so that they didn't feel that, you know, we were taking away something that was an acquired right, but we did make it a grandfather clause for those that have been there for a while. So I think that's the reason why this was the right time.
Okay. We were about the conversation we've had this year with players, and then some of the fans that we may have been speaking about and the different supporters. They've talked about the minor changes this year when it came to practice facilities for the Alouettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when we spoke with Austin Mack last week, I know he mentioned we were talking about the practice facilities also. But obviously, there's a change this year from the Olympic Stadium over to Stade Bear.
Yeah.
What's the type of feedback that you've received from the fans, and do you guys plan on staying at Stade Bear for the long term, or is it just something that the short term based on what happened this year over at the Big O?
Well, I would say for the let's call it a short to medium term, that is going to be the plan. The practice field that we had here at the Big O, first of all, the condition of the field, it was starting to get old, but also other programming has been was put in place where we had several weeks where we wouldn't have had access. So instead of moving back and forth, and also considering that the field was getting a little bit old, we felt that it would be in the best interest of everyone to move to another facility that's not too far away. So yes, it's a short bus ride away, and that's the negative side of it. But that gave us consistency and gave us a much better field. It's a beautiful turf there. It's almost brand new, and just better facilities overall. Everything from the turf, the goalposts, the stands, the press box, washrooms and amenities. And even for the fans, they get to go sit in the stands and watch practice instead of just standing on the sideline. I think that for all concerned, it was a much better facility for our players and coaches to use this year. So again, would love for it to be right next door. As you know, it's about a 10 or 12-minute bus ride, so it's not that big a deal. But for the short term, at least, that is the best field option that is nearby our offices, which, as you know, are at the Olympic Stadium.
Is there going to be a long-term option? I mean, as far as maybe one day.
Yeah, that has always been something that we've been longing for. We've done a lot of work on that again this year, looking into what other options would be possible. Are there other facilities available? Will there be in the future other facilities available? It's one of those things where we use a field about 100 to 120 hours a year, right? That's it. So for us to go out and build our own facility doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But for us to partner up with or be adjacent to another field, or at least closer by, could make a lot of sense. It's among the things that we're looking into, but there's nothing on the horizon right now. And I would say that practicing at Stade Bear is what we're going to see for the foreseeable future, which, like I said, minus the bus ride, we're all very ecstatic about. It does take a little bit of time out of our day to get there and back, and it's a cost that I'd do without, but it's a small price to pay compared to having an inferior field and facility.
So maybe perhaps one day we will see a Stade Videotron from Mr. Pelado, but not in the immediate future.
It's not on the radar yet, anyways.
I've talked to you about this before, and you're talking. It's a great segue, actually, that you mentioned what the turf is like over at the Big O, over the annex there, over there, and over at Stade Bear. This year, just this past off season, Calgary has started to install new turf over
Yeah.
at McMahon Stadium. And as you and I've talked before in the past, Mark, is that, I think we're coming up on year 14, I think it is. It'll be in 2025. I think it'll be year
Yeah.
14 since the turf has been changed over at Percival Molson.
Correct.
Has there been any talk between the team and, say, McGill University on making changes to the field itself?
There's been talk, but I can't say that it's imminent. For a few reasons. One is McGill they have their own issues right now to deal with their campus and their hockey arenas and whatnot that are more pressing matters. We'd love to. I mean, you'd always like to have a new turf every 7, 8 years, 10 years. However, we're very fortunate because although our turf is 14 years old, it's actually in great shape. And if it wasn't for the fact where you can see under some angles where for those that don't know, like the corporate logos that you see on TV are now virtually imposed, but they used to be in the turf itself. It was like blue fibers, red fibers sort of sewn into the turf. So when those were removed to put green grass back, to now have the clean field, in some of those areas you can still see the different shade of green because one part of the turf is older than the other. Although that's also starting to go away, you can barely see it now. But other than those subtleties that show that that the field was cut up, the quality of the field and the GMAX score, which is actually how you measure the hardness of a field and the safety of a field when it comes to concussion protocol and whatnot, actually has a really good score. This is, I guess, one of the really good decisions that were made back when the stadium was being redone in 2010 and the new turf was being put in with our friends at Field Turf. It was recommended to us to usually what you do is you put in the turf and then you put in the rubber and the sand. And if you put a higher concentration of rubber versus sand, it's a little softer and that keeps a better Gmax. But even the rubber eventually starts to compact. And another way of doing turf is you put a shorter fiber and you put in less sand and rubber, but you put what you call an E layer underneath, which is basically looks like a black styrofoam. It's about an inch and a half thick, an inch thick that you put underneath. And those are two different ways of getting a good GMAX score. And what we did is we did both. And so what's happened now is even though some of the rubber and sand is more compacted because it's been 14 years, the field is still it still has a very good GMAX score. It's still safe, very safe, and it still doesn't feel that hard as opposed to like the Calgary field that was talked about this year. So we're fortunate in that way. And the other reason also, by the way, is that the field is only used for 5-6 months a year. So it doesn't get nearly as much foot traffic as a lot of other fields. Like if you look at the field at Concordia, which is in great shape and everything too, as far as I know, I haven't been there in a while, but they put a bubble on it in the winter. So there's people running on that field 12 hours a day, 12 months of the year. So in a way, McGill is being used 6 months of the year. So those 14 years almost equate to 7 in a way, as far as the amount of hours of usage. So yeah, we'd love to have a new turf one of these days. We definitely hope to have one, but it's still in pretty good shape. So we're not, we don't have the concerns that Calgary had, because you alluded to Calgary earlier on.
GMAX is the thing. That's a new thing. I know you and I talked about the turf before. That's a new wrinkle. I'll have to look into that, because I did not know that was actually a thing when it came to grading how good a turf was.
So originally, the GMAX score is what the car manufacturers would measure the dashboard. If you're in a car accident and your car hits the dashboard, and there was a score of how hard that was to be and how it would, and then it was that test that was converted to then testing the old AstroTurf back in the day, and now the Field Turf fields.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat. Okay.
You didn't think having me on your show, even though I've done this about 67 times, that I'd be sitting here talking about dashboards of cars. Now, did you?
No, not at all.
I can
no.
truly say no.
Yeah, I wanted to know how badly the logo on the dash was gonna imprint on my forehead. So,
I like to keep you guessing.
Speaking, I know there was obviously a change this year for training camp, switching over to Saint Jerome from Trois-Rivières.
Mhm.
Any changes that you see the team making based on what you learned from doing camp this past year? Whether it be from the fan experience or how the fans will have access to the players itself. Because, in all honesty, Mark, is that um, being there and seeing how it's basically either the fans are being cattled or the players are being cattled, and how the access was made from the players to get back to the locker rooms. Do you know if the team's going to make any modifications going for training camp in 2025?
Well, I know one of the things we're going to do is we're going to have more stands for the fan day for the intra-squad game, because what was so amazing last year is how many thousand people did we have last year? I lost count now, but I know we had like
I think it was
Just over 3.
4,500. Was it 4,500? I thought.
Yeah, something like that. Yes, yes. We had a fantastic turnout, and so we got caught by surprise a little bit, to be honest with you, because we expected a lot of people, but that kind of blew us away. So I think we're gonna work on that, and the idea of having a corridor for the players to be able to get on and off the field was simply because there were so many fans out there, even on a daily basis, that the players couldn't get through. They were showing up late to practice or showing up late to meetings, getting off the field. But I do believe that next year they're changing. Speaking of turf, I believe they're doing some modifications to the other field that is closest to the facility that will allow us to use it more often. And I think that in itself will kind of resolve the whole cattling issue that you referred to.
Obviously we've asked you quite a bit about what we've seen as the positive and negatives from the team, and I know I talked to you specifically about a couple of other things during the regular season. Give us your stories on what it took for the team to be able to celebrate the 1974 team, from the uniforms, which looked fantastic. The whole kit looked amazing, and the helmets and stuff like that. And I wish, obviously, like if Saskatchewan can bring their throwbacks back every year for whatever reason, for the playoffs or whatever. I was kind of disappointed when the team started to raffle off the jerseys, the Delta jerseys, but
Yeah.
I would love to see the team bring them back full time. But that's just me. But tell us what it was like to be able to pull that whole thing off.
Well, it was. It's one of the things that I'm actually quite proud of, is that we had this thought last year, because so when it comes to jerseys, any change to a jersey or any replica that you're going to wear, or not replica, but throwback, has to be done 2 to 2.5 years out. So that meant that, I came back on board last April, right? And I think it was May when we started, we were looking at game themes for last year and everything. And I got in a conversation with Danny about the fact that in 2024, it was going to be the 25th anniversary of the 50th anniversary of the 74 Grey Cup, and that we needed to do something. And then that's when I thought, well, geez, if we're going to do it right, then we'd have to do full retro. And then realized that's in a year and 4 months from now, or 3 months from now. Like, we're nowhere near the 2 to 2.5 years. So I'd only been back in the league for a few weeks, and so I thought, well, why waste any time pissing off the league office? And I went to them and asked them, you got to help me out here. Like, there's got to be a way. And to their credit, after insisting 15 or 16 times, they gave in and asked. They set up a call with New Era, who were fantastic. They were great. I think they loved the idea. They saw where we're coming with this, so they started doing the design of the 74 retros last June, and fast tracked it so that we approved everything, I believe, by the end of last August. So just to give you an idea, you remember last year where it felt like I told you guys I was drinking water out of a fire hose from day one, and just like last season went by like that. And but we had the awareness of, okay, how do we start planning for next year? And I'm so glad that we did, although we went through a really difficult time getting it all done, because it was such a scramble. But then when it came around to this year, and then reaching out to the guys and organizing the event and seeing how excited the guys were about coming here, and just getting them to show when they showed up, and then we walked into we had a cocktail reception the night before at the Delta downtown out on the terrace. It was a beautiful evening, and it was like being at a high school reunion. And these guys, and you guys saw it, right? That 74 team, or those 70s teams, they were so tight knit. They were so close. They still are to this day. It was so special to see them, hugging and laughing and telling stories the whole night long. And then to get out on that field, and then to see our guys wearing that tribute uniform, and people, we'd seen the 74 retro back in 2006 or something, but that was the 70s. This was the 74. And so you guys saw with the Delta logo on the front, the numbers on the side. And first, even internally here, at first it was kind of like, whoa, that looks weird. But that's authentic. And once we saw the helmet, and of course it was with the glossier blue of this, the current colors. Anyways, I know many people agree with me in this, and I know that Tim, you do, especially, but it looks so cool that it was just like, okay, that was just perfect. And when you had the players from the 70s come up and say how it was an honor for them to see our guys out there wearing their uniform, and the way that we pulled out the win on that night too, it was great. It was magical to share those moments with them. One of my favorite moments was, so we reached out to Marv Levy, of course, and he unfortunately wasn't able to come because his health is fine, but he's not as mobile as he used to be, and he turned 99 a few weeks before the event, and so he wasn't able to come, unfortunately. And we reached out to him. I reached out to him again the week of, just to check, just to see if ever, maybe he would have been feeling particularly great that week, and we could convince him to come. And Mr. Pelodeau offered to go get him, send his plane out and go get him himself. We really wanted to make sure that we pulled out all the stops. And so that didn't work out, although I had a great conversation with him and with his wife. And then, long story short, from our conversations, we had the opportunity to bring out his daughter had not been back here since, I guess she was very young when he was a coach here, and his grandson had never seen the Alouettes. And so we said, okay, well, let's bring them out. So we brought his daughter and his grandson, and they came to the event, and she was going around with her iPhone on FaceTime with Marv, and going around sitting down and chatting with the players, and they were just over the moon. They were like, it was so cool to see. They're all like kids, just, happy to see their favorite teacher again, and it was really special. And Kimberly, her name is, she was very touched too, to see how. She's like, I didn't know how they were going to react to me. Are they like, I'm just the daughter. They don't know me. And but that was to underestimate the power of Marv Levy and the way that the bond that he had with all those players. And she texted me every couple of weeks since then, after games and after wins. And she texted me after that last game going, what the heck was that big gust of wind all about? I felt like saying, you're the one who lives in Chicago. You should know all about the wind in Chicago. But so that was fun. That was a lot of fun, and very special for us to be able to organize that. To answer your question, just to pull it all together and to have the ceremony at halftime. I was very proud of the way our team handled that, and having the fans down on the field with them. It was an opportunity for them to each get their moment in the spotlight, run out in the red carpet and get a standing ovation. And it was very emotional, very emotional.
Done really well. I'll give the team, you and everybody around props on that, Mark, because as fans may not know, that it may take, as you said, as long as it does to pull off an alternate uniform or a retro uniform or something like that, and that's I think that just goes to show the type of people and people behind the scenes that may not get their accolades, and I'm glad you're able to hear and you're able to come on and to basically give them their just due, because it's more than just you. That's there are other people that are working behind the scenes when it comes to these major things that you guys do every week at the stadium. So
yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that too. You're right. I mean, guys like Chris Arkinson worked his butt off organizing this, calling the players and booking the flights and doing all that. And Justin Montpetit, who does the game presentation, who put on the show, and the whole team. I mean, I shouldn't start naming names because I should go on a long, long list. But people worked really, really hard on that, and it was a huge relief once it was over, because it was pretty exhausting, but also worth it. That's for sure.
As we're, would I be fair to say, because I know I was going to ask you this, but is that fair to say that that's your personally, the one thing that you're most proud of for 2024 was that whole 1974 thing?
Yeah, I think that definitely that would be there's a lot of things that we're proud of, but that's the one that stands out the most. And I should also mention it's the reaction that we got from the alumni too. I mean, I got a call from Marv the few days after when he heard about the whole story from his daughter when she came home and his grandson. I got calls and emails from almost all the players that were here, or their wives, or both. I got a nice handwritten card from Sonny Wade and his wife, inviting me down to their farm and go visit them anytime I'm in that neck of the woods, because for the hospitality while they were here. And actually, funny story, I got a call also from the president of the BC Lions, kind of giving me heck, because he said he called and sort of scolding me. I said, well, what are you talking about, Dwayne? And he says, well, Wally was on our weekly radio show like he often does, and it's an hour-long show, and it's supposed to be talking about the BC Lions and our games, and he'd just gotten back from the reunion in Montreal, and all he could say was how well it was done and how well he was received, and it was a first-class organization. And then he says, I'm sick of hearing how good the Alouettes are on the BC Lions radio show. So obviously that was meant as a compliment from Dwayne to call and tell me, but also that Wally was saying on the radio back in Vancouver what he was telling us when he was here and when he called me. So that was very touching to hear, and it made us very proud that we felt we did the right thing and did it well.
Cool.
Look at it this way: maybe that was sort of helped spark that fire to have the city of Vancouver and Amar Doman and everybody involved with the BC Lions to put on the best show possible. I mean, arguably you could say that this past Grey Cup was quite the spectacle, not just on the field but off the field as well. I mean, throughout the city of Vancouver, everything was a buzz. I mean, I think they did a phenomenal job making this. So maybe that was kind of the spark that they needed to put on the best show possible for Vancouver.
Yeah, you're right. They did a fantastic job. It was the best Grey Cup in many years, and I'm not taking anything away from others. As a matter of fact, Hamilton was very good as well, obviously. But the facilities in Vancouver and the stadium and getting 50,000 plus in that building was pretty spectacular. And I think they feel, as we do, that one of the important thing about doing these events with your alumni is it's so important to reconnect in our case, because I think there was a bit of a rift, because for several years there was less being done, is reconnecting with our alumni, and these are the players that sacrificed themselves on the field for all those games to make the Alouette brand what it is today. And the 70s, that was the Owls' first dynasty, right? And so it's important that we create those connections. And I think Vancouver, the way they brought back alumni even during their Grey Cup festivities, you're right to say that Dwayne Vienno, their president, and Mark Doman, their owner, did a fantastic job, and definitely have the right recipe, and are continuing to apply it in their market.
I think what's cool is the 50th anniversary this year of the 74 team, and we just passed the 75th anniversary of the Alouettes' first ever Grey Cup win in '49. So, yeah.
It's true.
2025. Obviously, as we're taping our conversation, Mark, we're most likely anywhere between, I would say, between 10 to 14 days away from the league, giving us the CFL Nation their Christmas present and the 2025 schedule. What can you tell us about what can you tell us about the potential 25 schedule that will be released for the Alouettes? I know you made a comment earlier. I think it was said off air also. We're talking about hopefully never to have a Thanksgiving Day game out to BC 4 days later. Is there anything that you can actually tease about the 2025 schedule before the league releases it?
I was wondering where you were going there. I couldn't remember what we said earlier, and I'm thinking, oh, that's it. I'm getting fined by the league now for saying something about the schedule. There's not a lot I can tease. I can tell you that we worked very hard, and I think that the league heard us on this, that we need to get rid of these short weeks, especially playing on a Monday and then flying to BC and playing there 4 days later was just was ludicrous. We had too many short turnarounds coming out of camp as well, and then having to go to Winnipeg. And being on the road for a few games in a row at the beginning of the season is just not good business. And I do believe that those are all going to be addressed this year in the various versions that I've seen, and I don't know what the next version is going to look like because there's apparently still changes coming. So we're going to open the season in June, I can tell you that. What's important to understand is the league has a mandate, or the owners and governors gave the league the mandate. There has to be a CFL game every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the summer, right? So there's 4 games every week and 1 team on a bye. So there has to be 1 game per night, those 4 nights. And that was part of the recipe for really good TV ratings the last couple of years that have been growing for the first time in a decade. And a lot of it had to do with that. In the summer, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, turn on the TV, there's a CFL game on. And once you pass Labor Day, then it's doubleheader Fridays and Saturdays. You don't play Sundays, you don't play Thursdays. The exception being Labor Day Monday and Thanksgiving Monday. We obviously feel very strongly about maintaining our long-standing tradition of the Thanksgiving Monday game. I believe it only happened once in our history that we did not have that game, and I believe that was a mistake that was made inadvertently and wasn't ill-intentioned by anyone, but I think that we want to make sure that we maintain that game. And so the reason I map out the way it works with the season is that means that we're going to get our share of Thursdays here and there, and probably a Sunday, maybe 1 or 2. We prefer our Thursdays and Fridays. Our Fridays and Saturdays. But it depends who you talk to, right? People from out of town, they're like, Thursdays are tough because they got to drive in and traffic. Whereas people that work downtown, they want Thursdays and Fridays because they don't want to have to come back downtown again if they work downtown on a Saturday or a Sunday. So, depending on who you talk to, you get different answers. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to balance out. The home season should balance out similar to last year, where we'll probably have a couple of Thursdays, we'll probably have a Sunday, and then the rest will be Fridays and Saturdays, and a Thanksgiving Monday. But what that exactly will look like, we'll find out in a few weeks.
As far as you've heard, based off of what happened, the return to CTV, do you see that? Have you heard that if that slate of Saturday games on CTV will return, or is that still being looked at based off of the ratings, et cetera, et cetera?
I think it's still being looked at. I do believe we have a management council and board of governor meetings next week in Toronto. So I do believe that's on the agenda. So I'm not sure at this point what the recommendation is on that. At first it was a change in people's habit, right? So people didn't know where to go to find the game. But I think especially when we had the simulcast on the playoffs and Grey Cup, we saw some good numbers. But it's not clear at this point. I do believe that the intention was that they were hoping that they would do that going forward, but we'll have to see if it passed the test.
All right. We've taken up quite a bit of your time, Mark, but before we let you go, obviously this year wasn't quite what we were hoping for after winning the Grey Cup in 2023, coming this close to winning, or at least going back to the Grey Cup in 2024. When you look at the 2025 season that's up ahead, is there any one particular thing that you're looking forward to the most besides just being able to get back out there and playing football again?
Yeah, I think it's just continuing to build this team. I think that Danny's had a plan that he's been putting in place for a few years now, and especially on a consistent basis since last spring. And a lot of the choices that were made, a lot of the players that were drafted, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are still coming. And I think that what's really exciting to see is we have a very young core group. We have so I think the best is yet to come, really. And I realize that may sound cliche, but I think in our case it's so true. Just look at all the young guys that are committing to our franchise or that have come back in the recent months. Guys like Austin Mack and guys like Lawal, guys, and obviously Davis Alexander is that's gonna be exciting to see him showing up at camp, and he's got the keys. And but also seeing what's going to happen with the rest of the roster and how that's going to fill in around him. That's what's exciting to me, is that every season is different, right? And you guys know how many players come to camp, and there's always a few surprises. There's always a few guys that you think are for sure going to make the team that don't, and there's always a few guys that you didn't even know their name and how to spell it until you got to camp. And next thing you know, a kid like Rambo is lighting up the scoreboard. So every year you get that. So I think that's what's the most exciting, is getting to know these guys that right now maybe we're just seeing on a board in Danny's office, their name on a board. But getting to see them on the field that's why, to me, that's always the most exciting day of the year.
Again, like we have for the past couple of years, Mark, and all that, the other two versions of Mark that we've had on the podcast. We really appreciate your time. We really do. It's always a pleasure to see you on field and stuff like that. And I know I'm sure we'll probably see you at the locker room sale. But either way, whether we see you or not, Mark, obviously wishing you all the best for this upcoming holiday season, for you and your family. And we're looking forward to seeing you and the team, what you and the team can do in 2025.
Well, thanks so much, guys. It's always it's a pleasure to do this. It's always fun to chat with you guys. Appreciate what you do. Definitely we'll see you at the locker room sale on the 14th. Assuming you guys will be there in the morning as our members. Again, one of our privileges for our members is they get to have exclusive access in the morning, and then for any other fans that are listening, you can come by and visit us as of noon that day, and visit the locker room and get some good Christmas presents at a good price. And to you both, and to your families, and to all those that are listening, thanks for supporting us. Enjoy the holidays. Have a very safe holiday season, and looking forward to talking with you and seeing you all on the field, either at training camp or in the field at the stadium next year.
Awesome. Once again, Mark, we really, you said it best, Tim. We definitely appreciate you. And again, just already we're looking forward to 2025. So just keep doing what you're doing, because it's clearly working.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
What I love doing, Cliff, especially when we have these interviews with Mark, is being able to go back. And I don't know if anybody else does this, but I'll go back and listen to the one from the previous year or years, whoever, whether it be Marchicini or Mark Weightman as an example. And it gives you an idea of how this team, how the team has changed and the team has grown. We centered quite a bit on Mr. Pelleto this year. Obviously, there's a lot. There seems to be a lot coming. It just depends on when. I know one of the topics that we didn't touch on was a potential Grey Cup in 28 or 29, but that's maybe that's for next year because let's let the roof on the Big O get fixed a little bit more before we ask that question. But you never know, and obviously next year too, the TV contract. That's gonna be something that we're gonna love to talk about if we can get any information on it. Two different types of year, as Mark was saying, especially with the upcoming schedule, Cliff. We won't know anything properly until next week, because, as he said, he's off to Toronto for the yearly meetings, year-end meetings, and they're going to decide on some certain things. But I love these conversations with Mark. I think it gives so much insight on the team itself, with what Mark can tell us, and obviously how he's able to reflect on the past year.
Yeah, it is definitely a privilege to be able to talk with the Alouettes president and CEO, whether it's, as you said, previous presidents or our current president in Mark Weightman. I mean, Mark just brings the knowledge, is not afraid to sort of pull the curtain back a little bit and just let us, take a little peek inside just to see what's doing with this team and, try to, not give everything away necessarily, but at least try to flesh out and sort of give some insight as to some of the moves that were made this year. Not everything's going to hit, for example, but at the same time, you sort of understand why they went the direction that they did. And, again, there's always room for improvement. I mean, you're never going to have a perfect season, whether it's on the field or off the field. And not only does Mark understand and realize that, but he also embraces it because that's a chance to get better. That's a chance to get together with his team and say, hey, what can we do that's going to blow the doors off of everybody in 2025? And I love that. I love that he's able to share that with us and essentially share it with you, the listeners / viewers of this podcast. So, I mean, it's a privilege and an honor to be able to speak with Mark. And, we are so grateful to be able to do this. It's been quite a few years now that we've had the Alouettes president and CEO on it, whether it's different, individuals assuming that role. But I mean, always be a great honor and a privilege.
5 in a row. I think it's 5 in a row. I'd have to go back and check. I think it is 5.
I think so too. Again, it's something that I'm glad we're able to do, and that we're able to bring to you, our listeners or viewers. I mean, it's definitely something that we are thankful to be able to have the opportunity for.
Exactly. I want to remind everybody that we are on social media. You can find us many, many places. If you want to go listen to our archive and listen to any of our previous shows, maybe listen to the previous episodes where we have spoke with the president of the Montreal Alouettes. Head over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can check out almost all the other 9. Oh, it will be, as if you're hearing this, it'll be almost all 9 seasons of the show. You can also find us over on X, and that's at Alouettes FL Deck. You can find us over on Blue Sky, over at Alouettes FL Deck. Also on Facebook at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, Instagram and YouTube over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Do not forget, when it comes to YouTube, you can also find the audio version, the video version, and you can also find our post-game show, Flight Deck Live, all the episodes from the past 2 seasons of Flight Deck Live, and again, along with the full versions of these episodes directly to you, the fans. Again, if you are doing it over on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you do know when a new episode does go up and you can listen to it. And leave us a comment. We always love to hear your feedback about the show. Also, if you are looking for merch to rep, maybe for the upcoming locker room sale, or maybe over the off season coming into a training camp, make sure you head over to our store over at flightdeckgear.ca.
Tim, that would make some pretty excellent holiday presents. Going to flightdeckgear.ca.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
I mean, I think it's awesome to find something from the Alouettes Flight Deck under my Christmas tree, or whatever holiday you celebrate. So just a gentle reminder that, hey, you still got time. And I do believe they don't use Canada Post. So I think you can still you'd still be able to order something and get it just in time for the holidays.
Yep, and it seems to be that everybody seems to be making a change when it comes to being able to make sure you get your orders to you, because of the current situation over with Canada Post. By the way, we are also a proud affiliate sponsor of Royal Retros. Cliff, we want that throwback merch. We do not need a time machine because we have Royal Retros. If you head over to royalretros.com and use the code Flightdeck at checkout, you will save 15% off your entire order. Dude, as I said, part one, this is basically part one of our season finale for 2024 and our ninth broadcast season. Um, Next week, it's just a look back in itself, and that's where we're looking forward to doing. Obviously, it's going to be about the same time as this one is, about as we do every Wednesday during the season. But I can't wait. As I said, it is kind of bittersweet, obviously, coming to the end of the season itself. But as you and I have kind of hinted out throughout the year, it's going to be fun actually getting into our 10th broadcast season of the Alouettes Flight Deck.
Yeah, I'm always impressed with what we've been able to do on this podcast, and I keep saying it every time, is that I want to take the show as far as we can go and go a little further. And I feel like we've been doing that for the most part, and I'm not tired of it. I still think there's challenges. I still think there's stories to be told. I still think there's players to be interviewed. Still think there's a lot more to say when it comes to the Montreal Alouettes as a whole. So we're going to keep doing this. I mean, I'm excited for season 10. I mean, it's, but before we get to season 10, we got to finish up season 9. So yes, folks, make sure you tune in next week as we kind of go, do a little year in review, try to get caught up on all, type all the loose ends of the 2024 CFL season, and maybe even take a quick look ahead to 2025. Hopefully the schedule will be out so we can maybe quickly talk about that a little bit. So, I mean, listen, that's the one thing I think people been clamoring about. And can you believe that there was once upon a time, Tim, where you had to wait till February of the next year, and people were just so freaking annoying about when's the schedule coming out? When's the schedule coming out? When's the schedule coming out? Well, guess what, people? It'll be out before Christmas. So, at least now people can cool their jets just a little bit. But I'm already starting to see it online, though. I'm already starting to feel like, when's that schedule coming out? Like, you relax. It's coming.
It's been come on. Yeah, we're
Chill.
only in the come on. We haven't even gotten past Taylor Swift in Vancouver yet. Come on.
Not only that, I still think they're still taking their victory lap in Toronto. So I mean, let's cool our jets a little bit here. It's coming. Don't worry.
Exactly. Yeah. Give the current Grey Cup champs their due, I will admit. Again, we will be back next week for the season finale of our broadcast season for 2024. We really appreciate every single one of you who have listened so far this season, and we hope you do come back for the episode next week. It'll be a fun one. So we'll talk to you then. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.